Michigan before. This is the first one. This will be in Howell. Do you know how many venues in America start a show like this at 4 p.m.? One! How many here are from Detroit? But you're not really from Detroit, are you? You're just southern from Detroit, right? Anybody who says they're from Detroit, they're never from Detroit. How many are from Lansing? Okay. How many are from that place where Sam Raimi is from, up north of Detroit, Bruce Campbell, and then Southfield and all that shit? Country club people, right? All those Evil Dead people are from up there around. Is it Southfield? Is that the
Royal Oak.
Okay, yeah, country club. The people that vote for Trump so their taxes will go down and they'll get an extra $1 million this year. Right? Okay. Something tells me Howell is blue collar. Is that right? Yeah. It's blue collar. They have deer hunting inspection stations here, right? It's blue collar, right? Hemingway was from Michigan, right? He liked to kill stuff, you know. So I get it. We're in that part of Michigan, right? We're not in the fucking country club Michigan, right? All right, good. My people. All right. How many people here watched the Battle for the Black Glove last night? That's more people than I thought because it was 6 hours long. Oh my God, that thing went on and on and on. And it sounded like a good idea at first, but you know, I decided it would be like okay, 1 minute, and then 2 minute, format. No, should have been half of that. You know? So anyway, but we did prove that Bubba is better than Argento. Wow, that was like a 70% thumbs down, you know. But we did prove that scientifically, so you'll have to see it. I hope a lot of people watch our Christmas show this year. Joe Bob's Cold, Cruel Christmas is what it's called, because it's been a cold, cruel year for a lot of people, and we're going to try to raise some money for those people. I'm serious when I say we have identified who, there were a lot of cuts here, cuts there, cuts over here, and there were a lot of cuts that affected the weakest people in the world. We have identified those people, and so for our charities this year, it's four of the most brutally treated charity services from 2025. Because when the government doesn't step up and when the churches don't step up, somebody else has to step up, and so. We're going to raise maximum dollars this year for everybody who got the shit beat out of them in 2025. Anyway, I'm happy to be doing this show in a state where they're not putting the drag queens in prison. Most of the states or the places where they have sheriff's deputies standing guard at the urinals, making sure everybody's in their correct biological toilet. Because we have that now, Okay, so what this is another installment in my 5,000 movie tour of geeky exploitation films. And I do this with the cooperation of the American Genre Film Archive, which is based in Austin, Texas. Give them a hand and send them some money, because that's an organization that saves and restores and preserves films that the Motion Picture Academy does not give a fuck about. And so tonight we're honoring two films that absolutely nobody wanted to make and no one wanted to support once they came out, and yet these films survived and they thrived and they live on today in theaters like this one, where we all have really bad taste. So, if you don't want your friends to know where you're going, when you go to a thing like this, You say, I'm going to a genre festival, right? The idea of a genre festival is a relatively recent thing. I don't like the term genre films, you know? I mean, Gone with the Wind, that's a genre film. It's from the genre called Antebellum South movies that are so long they have to put a bathroom break in the middle. You know, but when I first started reviewing genre films in the 80s, they were just considered disposable trash, you know? They were beneath the contempt of newspaper critics. So I'm happy to see that we're bringing glory to guys who at one time would have been considered degenerate hacks. And not that I have anything against degenerate hacks, some of my best friends are degenerate hacks. But, and speaking, before I do that, speaking of reviewing genre films in the 80s, which we call the exploitation films, that's what we call them, the exploitation films. Dark Horse Comics just published a new expanded edition of my original book. Thanks to, you know, Joe Bob Goes to the Drive-In. We just had the launch party 2 weeks ago in Portland, where everybody was nervous in Portland because the California National Guard was on the way. Or, you know, it was in court every day. The California National Guard is coming. And, yeah, anybody ever been to Portland, Oregon? Yeah. It is the most laid-back place on the planet. It's like, you know, people are almost sleeping, you know, in the downtown area, which they said was out of control. So, but I thought if the California National Guard shows up, the Oregon governor could just call up the Oregon National Guard, and when the two state militias met, they just want to smoke some weed together. You know? But anyway, this new book that was launched at that time is actually a 1987 cheap paperback on pulp paper that the wizards at Dark Horse turned into a 2025 expensive 30-pound coffee table art book on paper made from the skin of babies. But not only that, they got it publicized and published and dressed up so that when it was first listed on Amazon about 6 months ago, it was actually trending ahead of the latest Stephen King release, which was obviously some kind of masterful manipulation of algorithms to create a fake result. So I was milking that. Everywhere I've appeared this year, I was milking that. When I did horror conventions or live shows, I would tell the fans, look, pre-order the book, even if you can't afford it, because the book is so expensive, you have to decide whether you buy a new car or this book. Pre-order the book and then cancel your order later so I can continue to trend ahead of Stephen King. And people actually did that, and then some of them forgot to cancel their order and they had to sell their car. But anyway, thank you Dark Horse for being alchemists and taking the hastily written these hastily written early articles and were turned into actual artifacts that will be cursed loudly by their future owners every time they have to move and realize how big that fucking book is. Actually, my archivist, Ben Nagy, where are you, Ben? Where are you, Ben? Where's Ben? Oh, he's out there selling books. All right. He's selling the book tonight, and he's responsible for finding all the stuff that I wrote 40 years ago that we then stuffed back into the original edition. And Ben brought, I don't know how many books, Ben drove here from Ohio with, I don't know how many books he has. Anyway, we have to sell all those books because if I tried to take one book home, my luggage would be overweight. So the book weighs 51 pounds. Anyway, I was talking about the exploitation movies that the Academy doesn't give a fuck about. All right, what I miss most about the outlaw exploitation era, the 70s and 80s, is the great titles, you know? The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, you know? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And of course all the one-word titles that just summed up perfectly what was about to happen on the screen. Jaws, Maniac, Madman. And I watched many of those films at the drive-in, attracted by lurid newspaper ads. And what strikes me about young filmmakers today is they're ashamed to do that. Last year I went to a film festival in Kansas City, and I thought I had found one of my favorite film titles of all time. The film was called Every Time We Meet for Ice Cream, Your Face Explodes. Okay, cool. I said, I want to see that movie. And then I found out it's based on a novella, and the name of the novella is Every Time We Meet at the Dairy Queen, Your Whole Fucking Face Explodes. which is so much better of a title. I mean, you can meet at the Dairy Queen to do all kinds of things that don't involve ice cream. So, they actually took one of the most unique titles of the past 30 years and ruined it by trying to improve it. So my only advice to the young filmmakers in the audience, are there any filmmakers here? We always have filmmakers. Okay, at least 5. All right. Work on those titles, people. Nobody is going to see your poster. We are in the age of streaming. You're going to end up on an online menu. You got to sell it with the title. And the movie that I've chosen, why didn't somebody make, somebody's got to make a movie called Aardvark the Movie, just to get that streaming place. Anyway, the movie I've chosen to lead off with tonight exemplifies that principle because the movie has the intriguing title of Bubba Ho-Tep. Bubba meaning Southern good old boy, and Ho-Tep meaning descended from Egyptian royalty. Written and directed by the great Don Coscarelli, from the original novella by Joe R. Lansdale, who's an East Texas boy. Now, I want you to imagine Don Coscarelli when he went into the office of a Hollywood studio executive in the late 90s, when he first got the inspiration to make this movie. And so the executive says, okay, go ahead with your pitch. What's the title? Bubba Ho-Tep. Okay, fine, we'll change the title later. What's it about? Well, the 2 main characters are 68 years old and 82 years old. So if the movie mogul doesn't have a heart attack at that moment, he says, okay, tell me about these extremely elderly characters. Okay, 80% of the movie is set in a depressing nursing home. Okay. And we're going to art direct it with a lot of browns and dark greens to make it sad and oppressive. All right. And the 68-year-old guy in the nursing home is Elvis. Okay. So it's a musical. We're going to have some Elvis songs. Elvis songs, those are always good. No, we can't afford any Elvis songs. It's just Elvis without any songs. Okay, so what is Elvis going to do? Well, Elvis has a giant tumor on his dick that has to be drained once a day by exploding it like a pimple. Okay. And his only friend in the world is a black man who believes he's JFK and that they kept him alive by putting sawdust in the back of his brain and dyeing his whole body black, and that they control him from a secret room in the White House. And the movie executive at this point might say something like, okay, so there's a comic relief character who is crazy and is also a patient in this health facility. And Don would have to say, no, actually, we want people to believe by the end of the movie that he really is President John F. Kennedy, even though he's not. But the other character is equally delusional and thinks he's Elvis. No, he's really Elvis. Oh, he's like an Elvis impersonator? No, he's the real Elvis, believed by people in the nursing home to be an Elvis impersonator, because Elvis at one time in his life started impersonating an Elvis impersonator. And what happens between these 2 guys? They make a plan to kill a redneck mummy. So there's also a mummy in this nursing home. No, there's a cowboy Egyptian mummy roaming through the woods of East Texas, sucking the souls out of weak people. Sucking their souls. Yes, sucking their souls out through their assholes. And what else does this mummy do? Well, he uses the visitor's bathroom at the nursing home to carve obscene graffiti in hieroglyphics on the walls of the stalls while he's crapping out the residue of the people he's eaten. So this is sort of a raunchy comedy? No, we were planning on playing it straight. We do have one comic sequence about Elvis and JFK loving ding-dongs, but other than that, it's a straightforward Elvis and JFK fight a reanimated Egyptian mummy to the death with wheelchairs and walkers, historical paranormal docudrama. So if we have an exceptionally polite Hollywood executive and Don manages to get this far in the conversation, the executive might say something like, so you're making grumpy old Ghostbusters. And Don would have to say, no, it's more like non-lethal weapon. A weapon of choice being a bedpan and a walker. Elvis uses his walker to fight the mummy. And then the executive would have to say, as all executives love to say, please leave my office. Now, when most indie filmmakers get the please leave my office message, especially if they get it from everybody in town, that's the end of the project. But Don Coscarelli is not most indie filmmakers. Don Coscarelli, if you look at all Don Coscarelli's films, he can be best described as the man whose plots can never be described. And believe me, I have tried to describe his plots. More to the point, his plots can never be completely understood. Lots of filmmakers talk about movie magic. And what they mean is technical tricks to create illusions. Don Coscarelli traffics in a different kind of movie magic, meaning he puts you in emotional places that you didn't realize existed anywhere in this universe until he showed you what they looked like. There are many ways that I could describe Bubba Ho-Tep, which we're about to watch. And they would all be bullshit approximations. I could say it's a movie about aging. It's a movie about regret. It's a movie about redemption. It's a movie about supernatural monsters that represent fear in all of us. When Joe Lansdale wrote the story in the early 90s, he announced to a friend that he'd written something that could never be filmed because it had everything in it that Hollywood hates. Meaning it didn't have a single commercial element in it. And Don Coscarelli proved him wrong. Don Coscarelli actually was told, get out of my office, by every movie executive in Hollywood. And then he decided to make it anyway. It's probably Bruce Campbell's greatest performance. And even though Ossie Davis has a minor supporting role, it shows him at the height of his powers in his 57th year as an actor. He made his first movie in 1945 when he came out of the Army. And if the musical score by Brian Tyler doesn't make you tear up at some point, then you have had your soul sucked out through your asshole. It does all the things that Samuel Goldwyn said a movie should do. It makes you laugh, although it's not a comedy. It makes you cry, although it's not really a drama. It makes you root for a superhero, even though he's old and wrinkled and can't really handle the action sequences. And it makes you wonder how it could possibly end. It makes you care deeply about characters who are seriously flawed and damaged. I hope there are a few of you in the audience who haven't seen it yet. Are there? Oh, wow. Oh, nice. Okay, because there's nothing more satisfying than watching Bubba Ho-Tep for the first time. It's kind of like having sex for the first time, you know? I don't know what that was, but I want more of it. You know? So, everybody who worked on this movie was doing it for the love of the project. Bruce Campbell was told not to do it by his agents and by his manager. Ossie Davis was told not to do it by his management. And since the budget was so low, they couldn't afford the elaborately tricked out supernatural mummy monster. But the guys at K&B Effects, the most revered special effects studio in Hollywood, created the mummy, animated the mummy, aged Bruce Campbell 25 years, and they did all of that for the price of their materials. They worked for free. Don Coscarelli wrote a book called True Indie, and this is the best example of it. They found an abandoned veterans care home in Downey, California. They built most of their sets there. Brian Tyler, the composer, he normally works with symphony orchestras when he does the Fast and the Furious movies or other big Hollywood projects like the Iron Man. He does the Iron Man franchise or the Avengers movies. For this movie, he played every instrument on the soundtrack himself. And then, when they finished, nobody wanted to distribute the movie. So they distributed it themselves. They struck 34 prints, and they took it across the country, one city at a time, using volunteer street teams to publicize it. And lo and behold, the people showed up, and the people supported it. And here we are 20 plus years later, and it's just as fresh as it was on June the 9th, 2002, when it premiered at a film festival held at the Palms Casino Resort on the Las Vegas Strip. Notice I did not say the Sundance Film Festival. I said the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas. And by the way, I do want to meet everybody here that I have yet to meet. So I'll be at the signing table all night. including during the movies in case you wander out there. But if you have not seen this movie, do not wander out there. Do not go out there during this movie, especially if you haven't seen it. But, and then after this film, we're going to do a Q&A for the benefit of those who will have questions, because it's a thought-provoking film. And then Darcy was going to cosplay the mummy, but we didn't have enough time. Darcy has all these, they lost Darcy's bag. Darcy has all these jobs in LA now where she lives, so she's in great demand as a host and a presenter and everything. Influencer. We call her an influencer. Yes, they do. They send you free gummies and stuff. So we'll do a Q&A, and I'll be at the signing table all night if you want to talk about it. And of course, I'll be back after the Q&A to introduce the second movie, which is just as mind-blowingly original as this one. So in other words, I'll be here all night. We don't leave till everybody else leaves. But right now, let's take a look at those drive-in totals. We have 6 dead bodies, 1 undead body, 4 breasts, 1 dead scarab beetle, 1 pecker growth, 1 rodeo mummy, 1 slow-mo Elvis posse walk, iron lung theft, fork stabbing, tongue ripping, wheelchair clubbing, giant bloodthirsty scarab beetles, exploding trailer house, hieroglyphic subtitles, profane hieroglyphic graffiti, mummy double torching, bedpan foo, walker foo, millennium flashback foo, space heater incineration foo. Driving Academy Award nominations for Bruce Campbell for doing a thoroughly convincing 68-year-old Elvis while kung-fuing giant scarab beetles and delivering lines like, "I felt my pecker flutter once like a pigeon having a heart attack." Ella Joyce as the nurse who has to don latex gloves and apply the white goo to Elvis's crotch. Reggie Bannister as the nursing home administrator, who says Miss Fiddlestein is waiting on her enema. Ossie Davis as the patient who thinks he's JFK and who shows off his drawer full of ding-dongs and Baby Ruth and says, "Let's get decadent." Bob Ivy, the veteran stuntman in the title role, and Don Coscarelli, the writer-director, for doing things the drive-in way. 4 stars for Bob 6 seconds.